Good afternoon. We are humbled as well as excited to welcome to College of DuPage this esteemed panel in the final session of the hashtag Chaps Unite Against Racism programming, the E4 series, Equity and Enforcement of the Law. To this interesting conversation, we have invited professionals to address equity within our community. Please welcome DuPage County State's Attorney, Bob Berlin, DuPage County Board Member and Attorney, Sadia Covert, DuPage County Community Resource Officer, Ed Castillo. I will share a little bit of their bios, and then we will get started. First, we have DuPage County State's Attorney, Bob Berlin, who received his JD from Washington University School of Law, St. Louis, in May 1987, after graduating from Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. He is married with two daughters, ages 18 and 21, and a beautiful 2-year-old yellow Labrador named Bubba. In his 31-year career as a prosecutor, State's Attorney Berlin has tried more than 85 felony jury trials, 55 of which involve first-degree murder. He serves as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the second largest county in Illinois and leads an office of 87 Assistant State's Attorneys and 90 support and investigators. Welcome, State's Attorney Berlin.
Thank you.
Next, we turn our attention to Sadia Covert. Member Covert, who serves with the DuPage County Board, has served as an elected official since 2018. Representing Naperville, Warrenville, parts of Aurora, Woodridge, and Lisle. As chair of the county's strategic planning committee, she initiated a resolution including diversity and inclusion as one of the county's strategic goals. She is also now co-chair of the county's diversity and inclusion ad hoc committee. Member Covert is an attorney and was co-author of an amendment to the Illinois hate crime law. In addition to her community service, she teaches law enforcement officers about diversity and inclusion as a state certified instructor. She lives in Naperville with her husband and 3 children. Welcome, Member Covert.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Sergeant Castillo, who began his career at the DuPage County State's Sheriff's Office, in 2008 in the Corrections Bureau. After 2 years in corrections, he transferred to the Law Enforcement Bureau as a patrol deputy, where his duties included serving as the designated deputy for Wayne Township. While in the Law Enforcement Bureau, he was promoted to corporal and earlier this year, sergeant in charge of the office's community resource unit. In the CRU, Sergeant Costello's duties include hosting various community events and working with communities to build and foster better trusting relationships between the public and law enforcement. In his role, he has been vital to getting important news and community updates to our Spanish-speaking communities. Most recently, during COVID-19, Sergeant Castillo has been tasked with coordinating relationships with the Northern Illinois Food Bank and the DuPage Senior Citizens Council to feed hundreds of our neediest seniors and residents at biweekly food distribution events. Welcome, Sergeant.
Thank you.
And I, of course, am your moderator, Associate Professor and Attorney Taya Force at the College of DuPage. I work within the Social and Behavior Sciences Division and the library in the Justice Studies discipline, where my responsibilities are constitutional law, criminal law, courts evidence and mock trial, restorative practice, and restorative justice. So let's get started. I cannot tell this panel how excited I am to have you here. So I think in order for our community to really get an understanding about who you are, we're just going to start off with a brief statement about you and your role in your particular office. and sort of what interested you into becoming involved in the enforcement of law. Can we start with you, State's Attorney Berlin?
Sure. So I serve as the DuPage County State's Attorney. I've been in that position for 10 years, but I've been a prosecutor for 33 years now. It's the only job I've ever had since I got out of law school. And what drew me into the profession was a desire to help people and serve the public and serve the community, protect the community, and really be a minister of justice, which is what our role is as a prosecutor. I'm passionate about my job. I'm passionate about the mission of this office, and I remain just as passionate today as I was when I first started 33 years ago. I feel that what we do has a tremendous impact on the entire community and people's lives, whether you're a victim of a crime or whether you're someone charged with a crime. Everyone's entitled to justice and a fair outcome, and that's what we strive to do.
Excellent. Member Covert?
So I was elected in 2018 on the county board, DuPage County Board, and I find my role as a county board member a continuation of all the work that I've been doing for the last decade. And part of that was I'm passionate about diversity and educating the public about diverse groups of people and the cultures and where they come from. My job actually this all started probably, I believe I started my police training first, and then I got into the hate crime law area where I started seeing some issues with our hate crime law in Illinois and wanted to make some adjustments to that. And a part of my plan that went along with amending the hate crime law was that we really need to continue the education portion of it wherever we are, to law enforcement, to the public, to everybody, so we can create bridges of understanding with one another. So my role is basically a continuation of my life's work.
Excellent. Sergeant?
So my story started off in law enforcement. I was actually, as a teenager, I grew up in an unincorporated area of the county. And my law enforcement interactions and the people that I saw patrolling were sheriff's deputies. And they were very positive interactions. And I kind of set myself a goal. I was in high school when 9/11 hit. I set a goal to do something where I could do something for the community. So at that time, I was very interested in doing something with the military or something in public service. So right when I was old enough to apply, I applied to be a police officer. And I'm very happy that I work at the sheriff's office here in DuPage County, because it kind of goes full circle. Growing up as a kid, I interacted with the same deputies that I eventually ended up being coworkers with, that I ended up going out on calls with. So for me, it's about giving back. It's about also reaching the Spanish-speaking community, coming from a Spanish-speaking family. And the area that I grew up in as a teenager was actually a very diverse community. So that was another reason, is to bring some of my life experiences and my personal experiences into law enforcement to give, some of my coworkers a different perspective.
Excellent. I believe now our community has a better understanding of who they're sharing their time with. Member Covert, I wonder if you would help us, though. A lot of times when we have these sort of panels, one thing that the audience believes is confusing is the definition of equity. How does your office define equity? And what is your role or your office's role in ensuring equity exists within the criminal justice system?
So we've been doing a lot of work lately, and the work in diversity and equity and equality and inclusion has been going on in DuPage County Board for a while. And if you look at their history of their hiring practices and and the practices that they have in other areas. It has been there. It's just never been really amplified. With passing the diversity and inclusion imperative, that was our first step to really amplify the already great work that the county has been doing in each department, including the sheriff's department, the state's attorney's department, the court system. So we have that in place, but we want to highlight what we do. So the first thing that I initiated was the diversity inclusion imperative, to get that as a part of our goals on our strategic plan for the county board. So now we have that in, along with the 6 other imperatives. Building on that, we created, and now this passed through, I passed that through my strategic planning committee, and it passed unanimously. Now we have created an ad hoc committee, diversity and inclusion, and it's fairly new. We just created it a couple months ago, and we'll be having our first meeting in June to explore, to really put it into action. Because you can talk about diversity, you could talk about equality and equity, but you have to implement it, and that takes time. And it takes resources, and it does take money as well. So we need to figure out a way on how to implement this. We have a great person coming in who basically does this as a professional, to evaluate your office, investigate, what are better practices, how do we form a diversity, inclusion, D&I office. These are completely separate offices that handle issues such as these. So officially we're trying to get something started. We're trying to expand our business opportunities, to women and minority businesses and veterans and diverse communities. So the work is there. We're just taking it up a notch, and it will take a while. So it doesn't happen overnight.
Excellent. Sergeant?
My role here at the Sheriff's Office, it falls under the Community Resource Unit. Our primary goal here in the unit is to make resources available to our community, whether that be a program for seniors, whether it be a program where we go out and we talk to the children before COVID about the dangers of drinking, using tobacco products. Our office is really committed, under the leadership of Sheriff Mendrick, to reaching out to various organizations, HOA, property managers, schools, as well as the hundreds of residents that we interact with on a daily basis through our deputies. COVID has really changed that, but we've been able to adapt and overcome. We've been able to serve meals through the Meals on Wheels program, the DuPage County Senior Citizens Council, the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and that's really getting us into the community in a non-law enforcement way. So these residents are not seeing the police necessarily there for an investigation. They're not seeing us there to possibly take somebody to jail. They're seeing us there as helping out the community. And I think that really makes a very strong partnership. And I'm happy to have these other 2 individuals on the Zoom meeting, because our office is actually in the process of getting a program approved. It's called Policing in a Diverse Society. I was assigned, and I'm very happy to say that we've sent that off to the states. We worked with State's Attorney Berlin and his office. Member Colbert is actually one of the instructors that we reached out to. And we're trying to build these longer, stronger community relationships. Once we get that going, we'll be able to focus on de-escalation and providing more of a community service aspect than a criminal justice aspect.
Excellent. Those are all questions that parts of questions that we'll have here in a little bit. So I may redirect you to just remind us of some of those parts. State's Attorney Berlin, would you want me to repeat the question, or you're able to go forward?
Oh, I think I can go forward. When I think of equity, what comes to my mind is fairness, and making sure that the law is applied equally to everyone, that everyone is treated fairly, and that every victim that appears in court knows that they're going to get the same respect no matter who they are or where they come from. The prosecutor has a responsibility under the rules of professional conduct as a minister of justice and not simply that of an advocate. And we follow in our office, we constantly cite the United States Supreme Court case of Berger versus the United States. Goes back to 1935, where the US Supreme Court said that a prosecutor's interest in a criminal prosecution is not that it shall win a case, but that justice shall be done. What does that mean? That means that every case is different. Every person who appears in the system is different, and every case has to be treated individually. Justice in one case may mean someone goes to jail. Justice in another case may mean a diversion program, which ends with a dismissal and an expungement. And there is no one size fits all in our criminal justice system. And I think that that's critical. A prosecutor has an incredible amount of power, right? We decide who's going to be charged and what they're going to be charged with. And in many cases, we have a big decision in what they're going to be convicted of, right? So with that power comes a greater responsibility to use it correctly and use it wisely. And that means that we need to give people a chance, people who've made a mistake or done something stupid. We don't want to label them as felons for the rest of their life. We want to give them an opportunity. But on the other side of the coin, someone who's done something violent, we want to hold them accountable. And that, to me, that's what equity is. It's treating everybody fairly and making sure that no matter who you are, you have faith in the criminal justice system, that it works for you and everyone in the community.
Thank you, State's Attorney Berlin. What I hear you saying is that your office is really trying to set everyone up for success. And I agree that that is what equity is, providing a path for success for everyone if they so desire, right? Sergeant, I wanted to just follow up to something you said, and I'm sure that everyone else on the panel could connect, since you've already told us about a partnership that you have with the other members. But what other agencies does your office work with to ensure that equity goes forward, that the work is being pronounced? As we all know, we cannot do this work alone. So naming some of the other agencies that you sort of start to hit on, could you share that with us?
Yes. So when we started including different groups and different organizations and different individuals, we kind of did something that we really don't do when we plan for a course or plan for an event. We went out and we spoke to residents. We would just talk to residents, just pull up or walk and ask them, how do you think the police in your neighborhood are doing? How do you think we're doing? We took that feedback, we took their information. We then went in, and I went into the jail and I spoke to some of our incarcerated individuals, both females and males. We asked them, how did your interaction go with the police? What are some things that could have gone better? What are some things that we could improve on? We then brought that all back and we spoke to the law enforcement that we have here at our office and asked them the same questions. How do you see our law enforcement here at the office? How do you see the law enforcement? How do you see law enforcement out in the community where you live, out in the communities where you may be shot? We got all that information together, and then we reached out to local groups. We reached out to DuPage United. They were actually referred to us by the NAACP. We also reached out to local historians from Benedictine University. We have a few doctors that DuPage United actually sent us to, and experts in their field, where we actually talked to them and kind of came together as a group to create this course. We saw what was needed, and we try to find the best people, which, you know, most of the time is our residents. Our residents expect a lot from us, and I think we could work to giving them a lot of those things. One of the other big things that came up from almost every group was de-escalation. Our office currently runs a CIT, crisis intervention training, and that's to de-escalate situations with somebody having a mental breakdown, maybe somebody that hasn't taken their medication, somebody having an anxiety attack. We've taken some of those instructors and we've created a de-escalation program that's also included in this diversity class. We found out that something as simple as asking a person for an identification can sometimes be taken the wrong way. So instead of going in with maybe a certain tone, going in there with maybe inappropriate words for the situation, we're trying to teach our law enforcement that, you know, there's de-escalation techniques, there's ways you could approach things, and partnered with the information we got from our partners that I mentioned, we were able to come up with that class.
Excellent. Did you want to add anything, State's Attorney Berlin? I know your office does a lot of good work with other agencies as well. Can you give us a feel for those agencies?
Sure. So let me mention, Unity Partnership, Regina Brent and her group. I've met with her. I've been to many of their events. I've spoken at a number of forums that Unity Partnership has put on. And their whole goal is to improve the relationship between law enforcement and the community. And it's so important because I can tell you, having done this for 33 years, we can only be successful, and the police can only be successful if they have the faith of the community. And that has to be earned. As we've seen across the country, it's very easy to destroy that faith in law enforcement. And it has to be earned, and they have to be professional, and you have to treat people with respect. So Unity Partnership, I did want to mention them. I also want to mention DuPage United, like Sergeant Castile mentioned. Sheriff Mendrick and I were actually recognized by DuPage United a couple of years ago for the CIT training program. I think we've got 40% of our police officers in the county who've been trained in CIT when the goal was really 20%. So it is about de-escalation. It's really about trying to keep people out of the system if we can. And again, those that do come into the system, it's trying to get a result of better outcomes. How do we do that? And we try and identify those people and help them any way we can.
Excellent. And Member Covert, do you have a couple partnerships you wanted to share with our audience?
Well, I feel like we have such a small community. I used to sit on the board of Unity Partnership. So State's Attorney Berlin works with them, and it's a great organization. Work with Regina Brent, and I was on their board and then their advisory board. But we used to have trainings where we would have trainings available to the public to teach them how it felt to be a police officer. And we'd have to, as a person from the public, we would have to put ourselves in the role of an officer who's patrolling, and we would have to come up with answers on how we would do that. So it was really helpful in getting both perspectives, how it feels to be an officer and how it feels to be the passenger in the car driving. So it was very interesting. And so DuPage United, Unity Partnership, NAACP. So we have great organizations here that we work with, and and we value their input.
Excellent. I want to pivot just a little bit, State's Attorney Berlin, and speak about House Bill 3653. And for our community, I'm sure everyone here is well versed, but for our community, the Criminal Justice Reform Bill, which includes standardized use of force, sheriff qualifications, cash bail reform, pretrial data collection, crime victims reform, arrest and release from law enforcement custody, prison and sentencing reforms, to name a few. It is definitely a few hundred pages, so I am watering it down, right? But State's Attorney Berlin, can you describe for our audience some of the effects House Bill 3653 will have on your office?
Certainly. Well, I certainly hope that it does have the intended effect of making our communities safer. And let me just say that there's a good portion of that bill which deals with police certification that I and many people in law enforcement worked very hard with to come up with that language. And I do want to mention our Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, who kind of put a group together of police, sheriffs, state's attorneys, many different stakeholders in the system. And we actually, in the waning hours of the lame duck session, everyone agreed on the language of that provision. That's about 150 pages of this House Bill 3653. And it's the idea that we do want to hold police accountable. We want to raise the bar and maintain that level of professionalism. There are a lot of good aspects of this criminal justice bill, which I think are, some of them are long overdue, and that we, not just myself, but other prosecutors in the state supported. That being said, we are working with members of the General Assembly to kind of tweak some of the language. And hopefully there will be a trailer bill. And I believe that we can get all the stakeholders to actually agree on this language. And if all the stakeholders buy in, I think it makes the bill that much stronger. So there is a sense of collaboration here. And I think we all have the same goal. We all want safer communities, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
How about you, Sergeant Costello? Do you have any specifics on how this would affect your office?
So without looking at the very large documents, I think State's Attorney Berlin hit on a lot of things. And I think the one that I really want to emphasize is our office here is committed to providing our residents with the best law enforcement, the most professional law enforcement. It has been maybe a week or so. It's fairly new, but I know our county is already committed to body cams, which is part of that bill. And we are happy to have elected officials and our friends over at the county board that, you know, made it possible for us to start getting these things that would support law enforcement and even cases help law enforcement. Because as you know, very complex, very stressful situations, a camera will capture what's really going on. And it does give the person on the other side of the camera a feeling of, you know, something is going to capture the event, something's going to tell the truth. And for the police, it's a similar protection, right? It gives us the protection of having something there that will show exactly what happened. You know, was there something missed? Did somebody remember something differently? Did they forget something? And I think it's a step in the right direction.
Excellent. Member Covert, do you have something to add?
Oh, yes. So with House Bill 3653 coming, what I need people to understand is, what does county board do? A lot of people don't know what exactly county board does, and we are mainly financial. So we manage a $500 million budget, and we approve budgets for the state's attorney's office and the sheriff's department and other departments of the county. So when we get a request, you know, of, let's say, $2 million for body cams, which we recently had from the sheriff's department, it's our job to take a vote on it and to approve and to work with different departments to see how we can accommodate this bill. So the issue of, you know, House Bill 3653 on the county board wasn't whether we agreed with it or not. The issue becomes, how do we implement this new law that we are supposed to, you know, how do we implement, how do we pay for that? So the main concerns are financial. And when this bill was approved, one of my main concerns, again, what I brought up was financial. How are we going to pay for it? Now, why does that become such an important question is because the county board is not home rule. We're not a taxing body. We don't have the authority to have these, excise taxes or, sin taxes, or we have levies, but we are not an independent taxing, authority. So our hands are tied when it comes to financial resources, and we have to work with the budget that we already have. So the effects of this bill, we were just trying to figure out, where will we get the money? Will we have to dip into reserves? Will we get grants from the state? So these were all questions that I brought up on the county board, as well as other members on the county board. So basically, it's just financial and just trying to figure out where we could get the money to implement the certain aspects of the bill that would require funding.
Thank you for that. I think most importantly, it's always important for us to share with our audience what it is that we do. So I'm glad you added that piece as well, so they can have that information in context. So I'm going to come to you because you are an instructor of law enforcement agents. What safeguards does your office, which you represent, have in place to interrupt implicit bias as it surfaces?
Are you talking about the training or the county board?
The training, the county board, whichever entity you would like to share with us. I know as an instructor, you deal with implicit bias, but how does that then nuance into the work that you do?
Well, I could talk a little bit about my law enforcement training as an instructor once I walk into a classroom of students. And, I do diversity training. So that kind of addresses implicit bias a little bit, mainly. And one thing that I emphasized at the beginning of class, and Sergeant Castillo, I believe you've been in one of my classes, I believe, where I encourage open and honest dialogue, and we create a safe, judgment-free zone where nobody's judged. And I always say, I'm not politically correct. I want you all to be comfortable with asking those difficult questions that you might not otherwise ask when you encounter, somebody else. This is the time to ask me. I'm not offended. So I take down those barriers, because when you walk into a classroom, the students are a little tense, but within 5 minutes they relax. But you have to create a relaxing environment for them where you won't judge them, and you are here to answer those questions. And I always say to my students, there is no such thing as a dumb question, a racist question, or a biased question. I want you to just ask me, because this would be the place to ask me. So.
Excellent. And Sergeant Castillo, since you've been a student, you can now help us with the same question. What safeguards does your office have in place to interrupt implicit bias as it surfaces?
So we, as law enforcement professionals, obviously, if anything comes that is said that's inappropriate, that somebody says about another person for whatever the reason, we have a zero tolerance for that. But like Member Culverts mentioned, we are trying to have that relationship. Just like I mentioned, all those groups we work with, we are trying to create a answer, because a lot of the things we're finding out is people make comments, people say things, maybe they say a joke, maybe they repeat something, and they just kind of keep repeating it. They never really go to the source. By having these people be open to questions, it makes it a lot easier, because it gets rid of misconceptions, it gets rid of fears, it addresses some of the things that maybe they've heard, and it really, really opens it out to have a person-to-person relationship and a person-to-person conversation. That's something that we found out when we developed this course, was we needed to have an open, judge-free zone where we could come in and no question was a silly question. If you asked a question, there was no stigma, there was no punishments, nobody looked down, nobody was disappointed, because we all came in and understood that we have to work on this together. And a question that somebody has may be helpful. They maybe get a better understanding of why does something happen? Why does a group, follow this tradition? Why does a group wear these type of clothing? It really, really does help out and getting that open dialogue going.
Thank you, Sergeant. Speaking about the personal relationship was great. And so, State's Attorney Berlin, I'll leave the question with you. What safeguards does your office have in place to interrupt implicit bias as it surfaces?
So let me start with our office policy. And it's written right in our policy that the foremost duty of an assistant state's attorney is to serve the people of DuPage County, state of Illinois, and in so doing, shall respect the constitutional rights of all persons to liberty, equality, and justice. I, along with the Kane County State's Attorney in January of 2019, sponsored a training for all of our attorneys entitled We the People. And we had Jane Reardon, the Executive Director of the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism, give a presentation on how to overcome blind spots, biases, and stereotypes. Just 2 months ago, we had a mandatory training in the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office called The Prosecutor's Guide to Diversity and Inclusion and Implicit Bias. Both of these trainings qualified for continuing legal education from the Illinois Supreme Court. We have a policy in this office that is strictly enforced, and that is decisions in cases are going to be based on the facts and the law and nothing else. A person's race, nationality, religion, sex, origin, none of that is material. None of that matters. The only time it will matter is if a defense attorney in the course of presenting mitigation may bring some of those things up to show that a particular defendant is deserving of a second chance. And we consider all that. And that's something else I want to bring up again, is that there is no one size fits all in this office. Every single case is different. I will have defense attorneys oftentimes say to me, well, somebody else got, 6 years for the same crime. Why are you asking for more for my client? And my response is going to be, because every case is different. Every person is different. And I think that's very significant. One last thing I do want to bring out is I am part of the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Diversity Outreach Committee. And I know that Member Covert has spoken at one of the Chiefs of Police lunch meetings and instructed police officers. And I feel it's very important not to only practice equality, diversity, and inclusion, but to let the public know that that's what we do and that's what we stand for, to generate that belief and that faith in us so that we can do our jobs and that people believe in what we do.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to pivot a little bit more here. And this is going to be a little bit of a lead-in. So when I ask that you listen to me, and I may have to repeat it, please share with our community, given the current racial and social justice pandemic that we find ourselves in as a country, such incidents as George Floyd, Sandra Bland, who's a former DuPage County resident, and Breonna Taylor, what proactive measures or plans does your office have in place to address such a tragedy if it were to occur as an officer-involved shooting? So I'm going to say it again. What proactive measures or plans does your office have in place to address such a tragedy as an officer-involved shooting, right? There was a time where we could say more if, and it appears, and I think one of the panelists mentioned this, I think this was you, State's Attorney Berlin, that we have started to see sort of a lot of this across the country. So my question is, what proactive measures do we have in place to address this? I'm going to start with you, Member Covert, if you don't mind.
So I feel like the county board is central to the DuPage County campus. We are surrounded with different departments, as I said before, the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's department, the courts, stormwater. And we have a lot of different mental health. We have NAMI, we have mental health awareness. And at the county, we all work together in prevention methods. And I think we have been for a long time. And again, that has to be highlighted more. With this diversity inclusion imperative and this new committee creation and moving this forward, we already have the ball rolling on that. But the work that we had before, I'm proud to say that the Sheriff's Department has never had an egregious incident that we have seen at the national level. And there is a reason for that, because they have the proper training, and the county board makes sure that everything's functioning efficiently and smoothly. And I'm thankful that we haven't had any incidents, and hopefully we will never have such an incident take place. But it's because of all the work that everybody's been doing on the county campus together with the partnerships that they have had. Now, Unity Partnership or DuPage United Partnership, these are not new partnerships. These have been in place for a long time. Even when before I started on county board, probably 6-7 years ago, I used to see State's Attorney Bob Berlin at every DuPage United meeting, talking about mental health or answering questions and talking about his office. So I have seen him even before I was in office. When I was an intern at the State's Attorney's office. I was there. I wish I was there when Attorney Bob Berlin was there. I was there with State's Attorney Joe Burkett at the time, who was an amazing State's Attorney as well. When I was there as a 7-11 intern, I was taught by my supervising attorneys what my role was as a prosecutor, as an assistant prosecutor. And they said that you're not here for a win. We are not here to win. We are here to administer, that we have to follow the law and be fair and be just. So everything was on a case-by-case basis, just like State's Attorney Bob Berlin said today, that it was about fairness. It wasn't about a win. And when I was in juvie, my training was a little different, where we were looking at rehabilitation of these young children and giving them a chance. And it was amazing to work in that type of an environment and to see justice and fairness being implemented. Now, was it highlighted? No, these type of things are not put out in the news enough, I believe. I feel like we should have a positive campaign to highlight all the good things that these departments do and how hard they work. But unfortunately, with what's been going on in other states and at the national level, we're painted with the same brush, unfortunately. And I like to see that change, especially for our county, since we live in such an amazing county.
Thank you so much. So some movement around marketing would be great in this area, right? Yeah. Proactively. Yeah. State's Attorney Berlin, would you like to weigh in on the question?
Sure. So 2 years ago, I was involved, along with Sheriff Mendrick and many of our police chiefs, in the creation of what's called MERIT, which is the Metropolitan Emergency Response Investigative Team. And it is a task force of the best in this county. Part of that task force is the Public Integrity Team. And we have encouraged all of our police departments, if they do have an officer-involved shooting, to use the Public Integrity Team to investigate. That is an independent body. Obviously, any officer from that department could not be part of that task force in that case, to comply with Illinois law. And they have investigated a number of cases where police officers use force. And Those investigations then get turned over to my office. We review them. And what's critical is that I release a report. I send a letter that's made public, and we release as much of the investigation as we're allowed to, and we put it out there because it's very important to have transparency and let the public see what the facts are, what the law is, and what our conclusions were. And so that they understand how their government is operating. And I'm a huge believer in transparency. We've talked about the partnerships that we've created in the community. I think that's critical. I really do, because if there is an incident where a police officer uses force, it's important to have these partnerships and that people you can talk to so they can be assured it's going to be handled appropriately and in a professional manner. That's, transparency. Training is another thing that I want to mention. We do train all police officers in this county twice a year. Our office puts on a training and we cover some serious topics. We actually solicit from the police topics that they would like training on. And the chiefs of police meet once a month, and there's always a training component to those meetings. I've worked in 3 counties as a prosecutor over 33 years. I absolutely believe that DuPage County, when it comes to law enforcement and criminal justice, we are the most professional. I believe we're the gold standard in the state of Illinois, and we've worked hard to maintain that.
Excellent. And we're second in the state. So I think that's no small feat. So Sergeant Costello, did you want to chime in on this one as well?
Since Attorney Berlin laid out very well what our merit partnership does with our local municipalities and local police departments. The Sheriff's Office, something that we do that hasn't been touched on, is we really do work on recruitment. We want to recruit people from different backgrounds, different personal experiences, ages. We want to have members of the community from all different backgrounds be a part of our office. Before COVID hit, we actually had a diverse recruitment team, and they went to local high schools, they went to local colleges. With the COVID pandemic and a lot of the universities, colleges, and schools shutting down, we weren't able to do that. But going forward, if COVID allows and restrictions allow, we are going to get our recruitment team going. We're going to start sending them back out to the high schools and the colleges. And we're going to be trying to hit, different diversities. We're going to have more people that we serve be a part of our office. We're really trying to have that very fine mix of individuals, males, females. We also do internships here at the Sheriff's Office, and that allows college individuals to come and see all bureaus here at the office. A lot of people don't know this, but the Sheriff's Office is the only police department that has a county jail. So the sheriff is the person in charge of the county jail. The local police departments have holding cells or holding areas, but we're the only jail in the county. We also have a crime lab. We're the only ones that have a crime lab. We're also tasked with courthouse security. So I know I spoke about the partnerships we had with Unity Partnership and State's Attorney Berlin's office. We are trying to hopefully never have a tragedy, but we are trying to get the best training, the best resources, and the best partnership. I'm a firm believer that most of our work can be done through verbal communication. If you could talk to somebody, it doesn't cost anything. Talking to them in a professional way is something that's very, very good. It prevents escalation. Escalation creates to hands-on may lead to use of force. So I'm a firm believer of communication and effective communication.
Thank you so much. And thank you for touching on the recruitment piece. I know that everyone here doesn't have their hand in that department, but I'm a firm believer that recruitment, retention, hiring, and promotion are all a part of that work. So I thank you for highlighting that. That is wonderful. Believe it or not, we're coming to the end of our time. And I wanted to leave you with this question, because I think a lot of times during panels of this sort, we're always asking, what can the county do for us, right? So my parting question is, what can the community do to help further the work that you're already engaged in? How can the community work with you to further the equity work that your office already engages in? And I'll start the comments with you, Sergeant.
So we work for the sheriff's office. We work for Sheriff Mendrick, and we would welcome the community if they have maybe an idea, if they have any input. We're always open to adapting, as you know from current events. A few years ago, nobody was on their cell phone. Smart technology wasn't something that anybody used, and now technology is kind of what drives everybody. Everybody's using some kind of technology. Law enforcement is the same way. We had to adapt to what the community expects from the police, and we have to be open to even criticism. We have to be open to ideas. We have to be open to what does a community expect of their police. We are very fortunate to have Sheriff Mendrick. He's been excellent and an excellent leader, because we have gotten ahead of a lot of things by planning. We have had no COVID cases in our facility. And even though we have hundreds of inmates there, he came up with a program for cleaning and certifying the people in jail. So I think going forward, if we start listening to what our community wants and what's going on in society, I think we could get ahead and adapt. If the residents have any concerns, please, we would want any concerns. If there's anything that they see as a issue of safety, if something isn't being followed policy-wise or the law is being broken, we definitely want to hear about that. I know Mr. Berlin and Ms. Colbert both mentioned, we are very happy and honored to live in a county like DuPage, and we have the best residents and the best professionals. And I think together we could keep it going that way.
Excellent. State's Attorney Berlin, would you like to weigh in on this last question? How can the community further the work that your office is doing?
Sure. So, we've reached out to the community. When I started our diversion program, the first ever in this county, we created 2 panels of community members who actually review the cases where people applied to get diversion. And they ask a lot of tough questions, and they're a big part of that. And they make a recommendation to us. So we're always looking for people to volunteer for this diversion program. We've accepted 346 cases into this program since we started it, and we're giving people another chance. But really, the biggest thing the community can do is believe in us. I said it before, we can only be successful if the people in the community actually believe in what we're doing. And that means they have to trust us and they have to participate. I mean, who sits on a jury? People that live in the community, right? And they're going to hear the evidence and make a decision on a case. They have to trust the police. They have to trust us. They have to trust that the defense attorneys and public defenders are doing the best they can. And we realize that we have to earn that trust and constantly earn that trust. But I realize we're aware of what's happening around the country. DuPage County is different. We really are. It was brought out. Last year, our sheriff's office had 0 complaints of excessive force in a county of almost 1 million people. That's remarkable. It is a remarkable feat, and it's a testament to the training that our sheriff's deputies have. That's what I ask from this community. Believe in what we're doing. Believe in the specialty courts, our drug court, our first offender court unified for success, our veterans court, our mental health court. Trust us that we are really trying to make DuPage County a safer place for everyone.
Excellent. And you have the last word, Member Covert. What do you think? What can the community do to help with that financial load that your office has?
So I was going to make a couple of points. First, just to
Absolutely.
take back off of State's Attorney Berlin, just like he said, we need to have people participate in the process, help us by getting involved and participating. I had a college student call me who wanted to be an intern, and she wanted to do criminal justice, but she was like, I don't want to work at the sheriff's department. I don't want to work with the police. I want to do criminal justice, but I want to work with an organization that does it. And I explained to her, well, that's perfect. The sheriff's department's perfect for you, because that is where you actually learn. Sometimes when you don't want to be at a particular place, you should put yourself in that particular place and learn more about it. So whatever implicit bias we have, even about a profession, that is resolved when you get involved and you see people and participating, building those relationships, learning about one another, learning about what police officers do, what state's attorneys, prosecutors do, what elected officials do, what it's not just race. It's also about humans. It's about people and getting to know people and how they operate. The second thing I would say, social media has exploded, as we all know. There's a lot that goes on social media and in-person communication. And when we're having these conversations with people, I always try to let people know that we really need to be united. But in order to achieve that unity, we have to be more inclusive, be more understanding, and we have to, to uplift one community doesn't necessarily mean to put down the other, and when we do that, and I see this on social media when there's arguments going on a Facebook post, that creates a lot of hostility between groups, and then they just don't like each other anymore. So when we talk about equality and inclusion, we should be mindful to include everybody, even some people that some people may not want to include, but we really do have to have an open dialogue. And I feel that people are not talking anymore. We're not having that dialogue. So it's really important to get involved, have that dialogue, and get outside of your comfort zone and go to the places where you might not necessarily want to be and learn about those different areas. So that's all I would have. Just keep the unity, and that's how we're stronger in DuPage County, by maintaining that unity. Because if we are weak, then we're going to have a lot of problems. So we have to stay strong and stay united.
Thank you so much for that. I think that about sums it up. We're better united together. So from College of DuPage and the E4 series, Equity in Enforcement of the Law, and all of our community, who I'm sure will be very much blessed by the comments and the transparency that was shared here today, I'd like to thank Sergeant Castillo, State's Attorney Berlin, and Member Covert. Thank you, thank you, thank you.